Okie. All right, we will start the webinar, which will start letting some folks in. Hi, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Dan, I'm doing great. How are you today?
Fantastic. You're able to see my screen, right? The little
Yes.
the little screen sharing thing went away, and I was like, wait, what am I actually showing? All right, you want to kick us off?
Right.
You want to kick us off today?
Welcome everybody to another QB Power Hour. We're very glad to have you joining us today. Today's topic is hot topics. We're going to be talking about QBO updates, and issues from the QB Power users and Facebook group. Go ahead, Dan. Yep. My name is Michelle Long, and I'm a CPA and MBA. Never mind. My name is Michelle Long. You guys know who I am, the owner of Long for Success. I'm having a bad day today. Anyway, very glad to have you guys all joining us. You guys know who I am. There's the links to the Facebook group. We'd love to have you guys join us out there. And it's good to see everybody again. Hope you guys are enjoying it as the summer winds down and the kids are going back to school and everybody's getting back in the groove of everything. Dan, go ahead.
Yep, my name is Dan DeLong, owner of Dan With. Worked at Intuit nearly 18 years, doing the co-hosting today, as well as over at Workshop Wednesdays over at schoolofbookkeeping.com. And just trying to wrap up the tech editing duties of the QBO for Dummies series, which some of these things that we're going to be talking about today has thrown us a curveball in someone trying to write a book about an online technology. So we'll hopefully unpack some of that throughout today. Some of the details about the QB Power Hour webinars are every other Tuesday at 12 Eastern, which now I am on Eastern time. Yay! Now I can figure out what time it actually is. But we're not eligible for CPE credit. But if you want to check out the website for upcoming events, our next topic is actually another one of those in the series of niche nuances, where we'll be having Monique Swanson joining us to talk about the cannabis industry. So let's I've got a bunch of dad jokes for that, but it should be a dope topic, right? Hopefully it won't go up in smoke. But that is a unique industry for sure, and definitely has some unique requirements. So hopefully you can join us the next time on the Power Hour about that. But you can always check on the upcoming events on the website, as well as the PDFs of the slides, recordings, a podcast. We're encroaching. We are getting close to about 20,000 downloads on the podcast. So it's a pretty awesome experience over the time. If you are listening to the podcast, we would appreciate a written review on the podcast, because if it's useful, if you find it useful as a podcast, we'd love to get in front of other people if you feel like it's useful for others. But you can always go to those that page on the qbpowerhour.com website /resources for all of that. As we go through some housekeeping here, so if you have specific questions about any of the topics that we're going to be talking about today, please put them in the Q&A, so it makes it easier for us to follow up with that. If you have just general comments about like "Hi, Michelle," which I just see everybody some of those things, you can please put those in the comments, and then of course we have the link there for the webinar archive, as well as the handouts, and I'll put in both places the link for today's slides, because you may want to make some notes ultimately with some of these things. All right, so this is our agenda today. So hopefully we have enough time to cover all of these topics. Michelle and I were just talking about, like, maybe we should have a timer on each slide just to make sure that we don't get bogged down into by going into the weeds with some of these things. But we are going to talk about some pricing changes with regards to QuickBooks Online and Desktop. The bill pay, some emails that came out about the bill pay service and how that impacts with Melio. Another email that caused a lot of questions about the business view and accountant view, some transactions. Then we'll go into some posts that were in the Facebook group. The transaction journal missing from the new invoice experience, setting up employee permissions, and some of the other things we're going to be talking about, some QBO updates, just so that everybody's kind of on the same page, and we'll unpack some of those things. One of the things, before we actually get into that, one of the things that I was noticing as I was creating the presentation for today is the Facebook group itself. Michelle, if you want to talk a little bit about how it came to be. I saw Hector floating by. So when did that first start, the Facebook group?
Oh my gosh, Hector and I started it. He remembers better than I do. But when we first started the QB Power Hour was probably 7-8 years ago or so, and that's about when we started the Facebook group. And we've kept it a closed group, so people have to actually ask to join, and they're supposed to say, are you a bookkeeper or an accountant or whatever, and all that. So we've kept it a closed group. So we were trying to keep it, not end users, but accounting professionals and stuff. And it has really grown, but we wanted it to be accounting professionals helping other accounting professionals. So we didn't want our clients out there, so that it was us helping each other. And that's what's made it so awesome. And we love the fact that we get Intuit as well as some of the vendors out there as well, because they can answer our questions. When people have questions about, the transaction journal missing from the invoice, I see we get Intuit people out there and responding to things, or, with Emilio out there, we get some of the vendors responding to things and clarifying some of our questions and stuff. So it is actually a great place. And it's also a great place for networking. When you have questions about something, hey, how does this app work? Or what do you think of this? It is a great resource for information about all things. So if you haven't joined it yet, please do.
Hector says October 2014 was when that first started. And one of the things that I was noticing, when I'm in there as a quote unquote admin of the group, you can see some engagement and some analytics things. And of the last 28 days, we have about 15,000 members. About close to 10,000 of those in the last 28 days were active users, right? So it is a very active group. And there's a lot of moderators and other admin folks in there. And so we keep the it's not spammy, right? Like it's really, people helping people, which is really the goal of the Facebook group, is so that people can help each other. And, and then we also have that, like you said, the Intuit presence and other vendors that can help if need be. So let's go. I guess in most cases, when people say I've got good news and bad news, they typically want to start with the bad news to get it over with. So let's talk about the pricing increases, which is always a hot topic in the Facebook group. I think once that there was an announcement, there was probably about 4 or 5 posts all at the same time about this message. So with the QBO pricing increase this year, it's a little bit minimal. So this is actually like a grain of salt, I think, type of thing. So the only the only subscription levels that were impacted this year with a price increase was self-employed. So most accountants hate self-employed anyway. So it's probably not on people's radar there, but all 3 flavors of self-employed got an increase, and then only Essentials and Plus. So Simple Start and Advanced were spared this year with any kind of update. So it's only been $5 a month, right? So I think Michelle, would you agree that pretty much everybody is raising their prices within the last year? Not just Intuit, but
absolutely
across the board.
Absolutely. And we as accounting professionals should be raising our prices as well. If you haven't planned on doing that yet, now as we approach the beginning of the year, you should be doing that. We should be doing that every year annually, just to keep up with the rising prices, because everybody is. It when you go to the grocery store, all the prices everywhere are increasing. And yes, Intuit is increasing their prices just like everybody else. So yeah, everybody complains, oh my gosh, they're increasing their prices again. Everybody is. I mean, so
Yeah,
Intuit is doing what everybody else is doing, unfortunately.
I just got my renewal for my insurance and it went up significantly. So, when I called them and asked, well, what did I do to to cost it's like, well, prices prices have increased for replacement parts, and even though I'm never driving in the area I'm insured, but that seems to be the case, is that everything is increasing, so prices are increasing as well. Um, so with regards to the QBO price increase, um, when that is happening, as far as the dates, 8/1 for new, right? So if you have a client, or if you're creating a subscription that is well, it's already past 8/1. So any new subscription will be part of this new pricing model. If you have an existing client relationship, or if you're paying for if it's firm billed, your those prices will be increasing after 9/1, right? So and then if you're on the ProAdvisor preferred pricing with regards to the discounts or anything like that, your discount will be based off of the new base price, whatever that happens to be. But your discount remains the same at 30%, but it's just going to be based off of whatever the new base price is after 9/1. I have a link on the slides there for discussion that we had about this with Matt Fulton over at School of Bookkeeping on the workshop. We did unpack a lot of these things. So the next thing that was part of that same announcement is QBO payroll. QBO payroll prices are changing, but very slightly. So with regards to the flavors, core, premium, and elite, there's no change. So if you have any clients, or you're on the elite payroll, well, if you're on the elite payroll in QBOA, that's free, so there's no cost there, so that's not going up. But your clients, there's no change with elite. With premium, it's the base price, and with core, it's the employee charge. So the employee charge for core is increasing $1 per employee, and then the premium, the base price, is increasing $5. It seems like that was the common thread with regards to all the price changes. If it was $5, right? So it made it a little simpler to track. So client billed subscriptions are going to increase 8/1. So if you have a client who's paying for their own payroll, those increases would be impacted already. If you are doing the accountant billed subscriptions, that's going to take effect 9/1, right? And again, we unpack that. The biggest, and I think the most significant changes involves around QB payments, right? So the QBO payment price changes. This probably takes more time than we want to have allotted to it. But basically, there is a standard rate, and then there's the ProAdvisor rate. Like if you refer people as a ProAdvisor through whatever channel that you have, there's a ProAdvisor discounted rate, and then there's the standard rate, which is just when somebody activates QB payments inside of QBO, or goes directly to QuickBooks' website and opts in or fills out the application right there or within the product, right? So that's the standard plan, and then the ProAdvisor plan. So those are going to be undergoing. I think it's more of a simplification ultimately, because there were two. As of prior to all these changes, there were two options. There was a monthly fee, which gave you lower rates, and then there was a pay as you go. So they're eliminating the monthly option, which means that's more simple, because then you got like, well, what is the rate? Which is the best rate for me? What is the break-even point of monthly charges until those fees kind of make up the difference of the monthly rate? So that makes it a whole lot easier. So in essence, instead of having 4 options, standard with the monthly and ProAdvisor with the monthly, now it's just 2, right? It's the standard or the ProAdvisor. So that makes it a little easier to understand the pricing matrix, right? So the key changes here is the monthly fee option is being removed, and then the per transaction fees are being removed. So in the past, right? You had the way that the transactions were processed, whether it was through a card reader or is keyed in or invoiced out, right? You send an invoice out of QuickBooks and then they pay it online. So those three transaction options were had different fees associated with them, because there's a different level of risk when it comes to that, right? Like if you're doing a card reader, right, the key, or sorry, the card is present, right, and so somebody sees the card, it's able to be put in a device, and so that's a lower risk of that card being compromised, right? Keyed in, that's just somebody typing in the card number. So as long as that is a legitimate card, it will process, but those are a little bit more risky. And then the invoice is kind of somewhere in between, right? So all of those fees prior to all of this had a percentage based off of the risk, and then a per transaction charge, which was just, for the sheer pleasure of or of being able to process a credit card transaction. Immediately there was a 25-cent fee, right? So those 25-cent fees are disappearing. So those won't be part of that, right? So I think what I have here is the pro. No, these are the standard. Yes, these are the standard rates on the screen that you're seeing here. So the card reader, right, was 2.4% plus 25 cents for charging the card through the card reader. Now it'll be 2.5%, right? So as that seems like an increase from 2.4 to 2.5, yes, that is true, but without the 25-cent charge, you're looking at, somewhere, I can't remember the offhand, what the break-even point is for that 25 cents, but if you just did $100 charge, the fees for that under the other plan were 2.65%, right? So there's going to be a point of diminished returns, right, where that 25 cents is no longer, part of the equation. Smaller dollar amounts, it's actually going to be less. So 2.99% for invoiced and 3.5% for keyed in. All right. So when are these? And then the big change, and this is where accountants and bookkeepers want to make sure that they do offer a way for their clients to avoid this, is the ACH, right? So before that, before the changes, ACH transactions, which are bank transactions, was a 1% fee up to $10 for an ACH transaction, right? So if you charge somebody $1,000, that would be $10. If you charge somebody $2,000, that would still be $10. You'll notice there's no cap on the standard rate plan, right? So now that $2,000 charge on an ACH is now $20, or a $5,000 or $10,000. There is no cap on new accounts, and these changes are going to take place 9/5 for new accounts. So coming up in a couple weeks, anyone that is going to be opted into a new account, they will be under this account, this pricing structure, if they are not being referred to as an accountant. And then September and October is when existing accounts are going to be undergoing this change. All right. Again, we've had this discussion pretty well in the workshop Wednesday that we did with Matt Fulton. So definitely check that out. Okay. Then, so if you are an accountant, let me go back to the ProAdvisor pricing. That's over here on the right side, right? You can see the discount is there, and also that max of $10 still holds if you are referring your client through ProAdvisor. Right. So definitely, if that's a conversation to have with your clients inside of QBO. If they are using the QB payments, you definitely want to make sure that you refer them, so that could be a substantial cost savings to them with regards to the ACH transaction. Now, there's this is a kind of a side topic that was in the Facebook group with regards to migrating clients from desktop to online. People, I think in the post, there was a message. They clicked OK without reading it, but they noticed that it was something about payments, right? And this is what it boils down to. We quote unquote seamless reactivation of your QuickBooks online payments account. So desktop migrators, people coming from desktop and moving to QuickBooks Online, if they have a payments account in their desktop, they will have a new account automatically created in QuickBooks Online. And there's some caveats to all of that, that they will be provided a new merchant ID, that's the MID there. So it's not going to be the exact same account as in, from desktop and in online, but they're saying that the pricing will be the same. Now, there's actually a different pricing structure for desktop merchant accounts than there is for online. So that remains to be seen. With these pricing changes that I just mentioned, what is that pricing structure going to be for desktop migrators, right? Because they will ultimately still be able to process transactions in both desktop and online because they are separate accounts. So we're just going to need to kind of wait and see what that looks like when it comes to what the pricing will be. But ultimately, it's just going to boil down to probably the same pricing that we just shared with you. But I can't confirm nor deny what that pricing structure will actually be. Any questions that you saw, Michelle, that were popping through about any of these things dealing with the pricing changes or payments? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I did see somebody was saying, hey, what about my 50 cents that I'm getting per transaction on ACH? And it sounds to me like their account is going to be migrating in September and October, that all existing accounts, if you had that 50 cents for ACH, that you're going to be migrating to the new pricing in September, October, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would fully expect the new pricing structure. If you had a pricing structure that was different than what it was, it will be migrated or modified into the current pricing structure of the standard versus ProAdvisor, and then whatever those rates are for that.
Okay, and then we have a lot of questions of people saying, hey, how do I know if I got preferred pricing for my clients, or can I switch my client to be under me for payments?
Yeah, so if it's a long existing account, like if they've been using it for more than 30 days in QBO, I would suspect that ship has sailed, or at least expect that to be the answer if you want to switch. But if you can, if it's relatively new, you can contact the merchant service team, or if you have an account rep or salesperson that you work closely with, definitely reach out to them and see if you can do that. If you so that remains to be seen as well. If you can switch them, but we've been able to do that if you catch it early, right? The catch there is catching it early, because Intuit is very aggressive. Right. We did a workshop where we actually did a demonstration of creating a brand new QBO account, and through the setup process, right, there's an easy setup interview where it just kind of walks you through. It just makes it seem like setting up a payments account is part of the setup process, right? So if you create a QBO subscription for your client, even if you've done it inside of your QBO accountant, right, and then you just invite them to it, and then you just start walking through the setup process, they may have opted into a QBO account or a QBO payments account without even knowing that, right? So because they make it seem like it's just part of the process. Let's get you paid. Like, yeah, I like money. And then they opt in, and they have the information already in there about your business, and you've already entered in your EIN, and so they'll take some of that information and make it super easy to set up But to answer the question about what the fee structure is, if you go into payments, the payment settings, so year, and then account and settings, and then there's a section in there for payments. You can view the statements, and then inside the statements, it'll have the breakdown of the charges and what those rates are. So you can kind of compare that to what we have here on the slides and see whether they are. So it's not going to say anywhere it's like these are ProAdvisor preferred rates or these are standard rates. You just kind of have to do that with your client or within your clients. As an accountant, right? You're going to have access to be able to see those statements. So as long as you are invited as an accountant user inside of QuickBooks, you'll be able to access those statements without having to ask your client, hey, give me a statement so I can just double check. But if they've been using it for a while, it's not something that you can go into it later and say, hey, I would like to give them a discounted rate because they've already, that ship has sailed with regards to that. And any other questions that you saw there, Michelle?
No, we just have some complaints about some of our wonderful clients who may be doing sales and collecting receipts through Zelle and not telling their accountants about that because they want to avoid the fees. And so, we've all had clients like that. And evidently Kathleen has had one. And now, of course, they have all these unreported sales that came through Zelle and they didn't tell her about that. So anyway.
So Kathleen said, so for ACH, there's no discount rate for ProAdvisors, correct, right? So there's no discount on the rate, but there's a discount on the cap, right? So in essence, that's a discount, right? So it'll be the maximum is still $10 for ProAdvisor preferred pricing. So if you have those large dollar amounts, and that's not based off of a batch, that's per transaction. So if you're not invoicing or not charging ACH charges for more than $1,000, the cap means nothing, right? So $500 will be $5 regardless if you're dealing with an ACH transaction. And we don't want to get into the weeds about refunds with ACH and those types of things, but it's a different animal altogether when it comes to charging. We'll just say that. All right. So with QBO pricing changes comes desktop pricing changes, and those are going into effect September 1st for new and renewing accountant and ProAdvisor bundle subscriptions. September 20th for new and renewing Pro Plus, Premier Plus, and Mac Plus subscriptions. And then October 1st for new or renewing enhanced or basic payroll subscriptions. So the general idea is, and it's quite clear where QuickBooks and Intuit are encouraging people to go. And they're doing that by pricing people out of the desktop subscriptions, right? So just within Pro Plus, right, which is the lowest version of QuickBooks Desktop, the current annual price is, and this is just based on one user, $549, and that is increasing to $649, so $100. And then if they have multiple users, the increase is going to be more than that because they've got a per user cost for Pro Plus. Premier Plus going from $799 to $949, so $100 or $150 depending on which flavor, just for one user for desktop. So it's quite apparent that this is what's driving people to look at QBO when they look at the pricing of their desktop. Now, people love the desktop, and we've talked pretty extensively about the dogs and cats analogy, where QuickBooks Desktop is a dog. It's very loyal, it's trainable. You kind of know what you're in for with the dog, but QBO is a cat, where you're just kind of sharing the same space as QuickBooks in that case. And as long as you feed and water it and don't show the bottom of the bowl, you'll be good to go, and just don't get scratched on that. Any comments you had on the desktop pricing?
Just some people are talking about the ProAdvisor renewal and what that's going to be for enterprise and assisted payroll and stuff. I can't remember, but the ProAdvisor renewal has gone up as well for enterprise.
Yeah.
If you want the paid ProAdvisor program, I can't remember the pricing, but it has gone up as well. I'll get the link and put that out there.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom here. If you click on the desktop pricing changes, that should link and take you to that. One surprise, like there's some things that you can't get anymore, right? So once 2024 comes out, which will probably be sometime in the October timeframe, the only channel that you'll be able to get Pro and Premier is direct through Intuit, right? So there's no discounts for that first year. You can't find a reseller that will be able to sell it, or a QuickBooks solution provider. You can only purchase it by contacting Intuit. Now, I don't know if they're going to drive phone calls for that, because then now they're going to offer, well, if you're going to upgrade, why don't you go upgrade to QBO, right? Like, I don't know what that conversation or that is going to be looking like, but that is going to be the only way to be able to do that. And one of the other, so you won't be able to do assisted payroll anymore. So there was an enhanced, basic and enhanced and assisted payroll. So assisted payroll is going away. And prior to all this, the enhanced payroll for accountants, new subscriptions were discontinued. However, I did notice that the pricing for the renewal price for an existing enhanced payroll for accountants is doubling, right? So that was $700 if you just had it as an a la carte. That's jumping to $1,400 for the enhanced payroll for accountants, and so it's discounted 50% if it's part of your ProAdvisor bundle. So that doubling just got cut in half. So if you had it as part of your ProAdvisor subscription, that will be $700 in addition to whatever it is your ProAdvisor membership is costing you as well, which is also increasing. So always a wonderful topic to discuss about desktop pricing increases, but that is, the advantage of desktop is you can have as many companies as you want, as your hard drive can hold. So as long as that risk versus reward, not risk, but the return on investment makes sense, then it's still part of the conversation. All right, so kind of shifting gears to Melio, and there's always the the debate of how do you pronounce this this term? Is it Melio or Melio? Right, it's tomato, right?
Exactly.
But Melio is a bill payment service for business-to-business transactions. And if you have been living under a rock, you may not have noticed that Melio provided the bill payment service inside of QuickBooks Online, right? So there are two flavors of Melio, and there's Melio Purple, which that's their branded color, which is what you see when you're outside, when you log into Melio outside of QuickBooks Online. But inside of QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is all about green, the QuickBooks bill pay service inside of QuickBooks was powered by Melio, and that is what is being discontinued, right? So that particular function of being able to schedule your bill payments inside of QuickBooks is being discontinued. Now, there was a communication, and this is what this post is all about. There was a communication for people who had set up the service but never used it. And so if they never used or scheduled a bill payment or did anything, on September 12th, they will no longer have access to be able to do that. But this, of course, and this is all part of Intuit's Achilles heel, is you can never explain it properly enough, right? And so that everybody understands the ramifications, right? So you can still use Melio. Melio is not going away. The subject of some of these emails is that Melio is going away, right? Well, Melio is not going away. It's the ability to be able to schedule a bill payment from within QB directly that is being discontinued, because what's happening is that QuickBooks is creating its own service, right? So, and this is all part of the QuickBooks payments ecosystem, right? So being able, QuickBooks payments has always been receiving money, but now they're expanding their money movement offerings to sending money as well. All right. So, and this is Caleb. I think Caleb Jenkins mentioned this in maybe another Facebook group, the QB Community Live, but this whole idea of the business network of QuickBooks and now this money movement actually makes a really nice ecosystem, I think, for this approach, and I'm kind of cautiously optimistic to be seeing how this kind of plays out, because the business network, it gives you the ability to to attach to a QuickBooks user that's already using QuickBooks. Their contact information comes in, and if you send them an invoice, it could turn into a bill over in their QuickBooks if you're both using QuickBooks. So now if you throw this whole money movement on top of that, the reality is we could actually have payments being made just by being both QuickBooks users in this case, because you got both sides of the money movement, both sides of the the sides of both sides of these things all holistically. Michelle, you have any thoughts about that aspect?
I'm sorry, I was double checking something else. I think it's great that Melio is still there. I think they could have worded it a whole lot better to avoid the confusion, because what it really is QuickBooks is trying to do their own thing, and so they're just kicking Bill and Melio integration out of QuickBooks. They're just kicking the integration out so they can do their own thing and make their own money. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you turn back the clock, right? This is why I wanted to include this slide here. There had QuickBooks QuickBooks Online, as far as initiating a reality. Sending an instruction to a financial institution to have money to move money outside of QuickBooks, dictating the reality has always been a tall order, right? So when I worked at Intuit, Intuit had a partnership with Bill.com at the time, right? So Bill.com was like probably like the the litmus test of AP money movement, right? But it's fairly expensive per user and whatnot. So they created a light version of the online bill pay, which allowed that to be utilized inside of QuickBooks Online directly, right? So back then it was like $10 a month, and then the transactional charges, and then there was always this feedback from accountant users that couldn't access it, and that's that sort of thing. But that was the initial offering of paying bills and sending money movement outside of to the reality of that coming out of QuickBooks Online. And then I think it was around 2019, right before the pandemic, they arranged a partnership with Melio, and Melio is very free-ish, as they always said it. We had David Leary, when he was with Melio, come on the QB Power Hour to talk about it. Their model and their pricing model was free-ish to use, right? And they always put the ish at the end because you could, do things that would cause a fee with that, and they've changed their model with sending checks and things like that. But it was deeply integrated. Like if you didn't know that you were using Melio, you didn't, right? Because it was all scheduled the payment inside of QuickBooks. It activated the bill payment service, and you never had to leave QuickBooks in order to utilize that service. And unless you were reading like the fine print on the screen, which people don't see the big print sometimes. It's hard to see the fine print. and you could do, you can do the same things outside of QuickBooks if you're using the Melio service as well. So there is a green and a purple, and that's the distinction that they had with that. But once you were using Melio, you couldn't use the bill pay service from Bill, right? So now QuickBooks, as Michelle had mentioned, QuickBooks is wanting to, partake of this too, and this is a new offering. It's part of QB Payments, and those first ACHs are free. So there's a link there to learn about the service. There's a lot of resources in that link there as well, as far as the pricing, and they mention a basic subscription, so that leads me to believe that there is more of a premium subscription, and those types of things. So remains to be seen what that actually looks like. But the bottom line is that you can still use these other services if you had them. It's just you do them outside of QuickBooks if you need to. All right. I think we can put that one to bed. Wow, it's 12:40 already. So keep moving. Keep this truck moving. All right. So business view and accountant view. This is what's caused a big to do over at the QBO for Dummies, because the author was actually focusing on business view inside of the book, and here comes this announcement. So this announcement was sent to accountants, where the business view and the accountant view. If you hadn't noticed, there's two different views, one for business owners and one for accountants, and the terminology is changes between the two, where banking versus transactions, and the whole idea is to make it business focused, like what a business owner would expect to see as far as the terminology and the placement of things. Pay and get paid, right? So that's a workflow terminology for a business owner, whereas expenses and sales is more of an accountant terminology. But this is also an example of Intuit responding to feedback, right? So accountants, I think, pretty much hated the the business view. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes. Well, one of the things that we just hate is the fact that we're not looking at the same thing as our client. And we don't mind a few differences, like customizing, customers can be called, clients or something like that. Some differences are okay, but when there's too many differences, that makes it difficult for us supporting our client.
Yeah. And if you're sending them an instruction, it's like, okay, click on sales, and they'll be like, oh, I don't see sales.
Right.
Or click on banking, and it says transactions.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Right.
It makes it difficult.
So the timeline of all this is certainly up in the air. But ultimately, the navigation is going to revert back to the accountant view. Yay, the accountants win on the on the terminology is concerned. It's going to be a phased approach. Initially, there will be an opt-in where people can opt in to just switching back to the accountant view. After that, there's going to be a gradual rollout of this process. Some accounts or QB accounts are going to be a little bit different than others. And then there's that whole idea of the different terms. They're going to change that kind of after everybody's in the same hierarchy of the menu, and then they'll work on homogenizing the terms.
It does make sense. It does make sense to change banking to transactions, because now that area is pulling a lot more in than just banking. So that does make sense to me. So
okay, you get an honorable mention from the terminology. Yeah. Okay, so there has been a new invoice experience for a long time, but I've tried to look at all of the companies that I have access to, and I don't think I have anybody on this new invoicing experience. Do you have anyone?
I was looking last night as well, and I couldn't find it either. And I couldn't find it in the sample companies, the regular one or the advanced sample company either. So I couldn't find one either.
Yeah, it's but based on this post, if you are in the new experience, there is a transaction journal that accountants love, right? You love to see the debits and credits of what a transaction's impacting, but if you're in that new experience, you don't see the option. So that's a sore point, right? So with the new experience, and I saw on the post itself, Hector chimed in. He hates it as well, or drives him bonkers, right? That's the that's the Hector terminology. But you can customize the sales form on the spot. But you should be able to turn that off, right? So definitely send feedback. If you look at the post, if you go into the post, you can see that this is one of those examples of Intuit being present in the Facebook group and being able to provide that feedback from the Facebook group to the product manager or whoever happens to be driving that initiative. That feedback is certainly important to them, but also I threw in here a way that you should be able to access the transaction journal, even if you are not, or if you're in the new experience and you can't change it back, right? So I highlighted the areas that need to be corrected, but this is the link that happens when you click on transaction journal, and as long as you have the date, the right date in there, and the name of your business, and also keep in mind that if you've got a space in your business, there's what's the word I'm looking for? If you've got a space in your business, there's a character that you need to add in there. You just can't type in your business name unless it's one word. And then the transaction number, which you can get that transaction number from the URL before you flip, try to go into the transaction journal. So it'll have that at the top. Like if you're on an invoice, it's not the invoice number, it is the transaction number for inside of the QuickBooks company file. And it'll have a number in there like 967 or, whatever it says there. So if you modify the URL, like you could save this as a bookmark or put it in a text, or maybe Mark and Hector can figure out a way to make this work with the right tool component of that by just making these things available. That would be awesome, right? But that's a way to modify the URL for the transaction journal if you can't see it. And it looks like Hector did say yes, we did. So Control-Alt-Y is a keyboard shortcut to bring up the transaction journal. Yay, Hector! Thank you. All right, so this is another thing to update folks on, and this is the "What Took You So Long" department. With employees and team members inside of QuickBooks Online Accountant, when you are inviting team members and you were tracking your books in the Your Books section, they had access or they didn't. It didn't have any kind of granularity to it. Well, finally, there's been an initiative to actually spread that out amongst the different areas, right? Like if you just wanted to give somebody time access, couldn't do it, right? So now you should be able to get a little granular with the team member and firm user access within the Your Books section. So there's a link there for that. So we'll just keep continuing on because we're running out of time here. Because we want to talk about sales tax economic nexus. Michelle, you want to kind of talk through this one?
Yeah, this is one that's just been out there hidden, and it's been out there for a while, and I'm not sure why I've not seen it in the updates or anything like that. Have you seen it anywhere, Dan? I haven't seen them talk about it anywhere, but anyway.
No, I've not seen any discussion about it. It was just, I discovered it by accident. When I saw the button.
Yeah, same here. And it's been out there for 6 months or a year. And that's why I'm kind of surprised I haven't really heard anything or seen anything about it. But anyway, in the Sales Tax Center, you'll find that Economic Nexus button out there. And so if you'd like to go out and check this out and play with it, if you go into the sample company, you can actually turn on the Sales Tax Center. It's not turned on by default, but all you have to do is turn it on. And I guess we don't really have time if we want to have time for Q&A here. But if you turn on the Sales Tax Center, and there's to do that, you actually have to set up the, if go back up one more real quick for me, Dan. You have to actually set up California and Arizona. All you have to do is select those two agencies, and to set it up and turn it on. It takes like 1 minute to turn it on, to enable the Sales Tax Center. And then you'll see Economic Nexus. So then when you click on the Economic Nexus button, you'll see the next slide. This is where you'll see all 50 states, and it's going to start tracking for you the sales tax or the sales within the 50 states, because that new law, because of the Wayfair ruling, in all of these different states now, they have different laws, and it's really cool. Actually, if you go in there, it'll say, once you're in there, it'll say something about learn more. If you click on it, it allows you to select which state you're interested in. So you can see what the rules are for Arizona or California or Kansas or Missouri or Pennsylvania. And you can see a lot of these states have a rule that if the sales exceed 100,000 or 200 transactions, so 200 sales within a state or $100,000, then that company has triggered economic nexus, meaning they have to file sales tax in that state. So because of the Wayfair ruling, a lot of companies that are shipping products throughout the United States now have to file sales taxes in states if they trigger economic nexus. So this is tracking that for you. So you can see the transaction count as well as the sales volume. So you'll want to check this out, because a lot of your clients, if they're shipping products across the US, they may be triggering economic nexus and you're not aware of that. So please check this out and be aware of that, and go find it out, because 200 sales or $100,000 for a lot of states, that's not really that much. So go check that out there. And then here's the details, some more details, as well as a link to an article where you can go learn some more about that. But I think it's a great tool to help you to monitor that. And I'm surprised, because it is such a big deal. I'm surprised we have not heard more or seen more about that out there.
Yeah. I think the when I saw it, and I just went and looked at it again on where I did see it in a couple company files. Before you could run a report, like you could select, like if I wanted to select Arizona, right, and I could run a report, and in true Intuit fashion, and in QuickBooks is really great at looking back. It's a rear view mirror versus the windshield type of thing. So it will look back, but not necessarily actively, as you're driving the car, tell you, hey, you're getting close to, right? So that might be like if you have a lot of states that you could potentially cross over that threshold. There are other ways to do that. This is not like a heat map where you can see, okay, at any given time, I might be getting close to the threshold, and I might start to wonder about that. That's where, Avalar, TaxJar, those types of things, they can monitor that stuff for you. But this is more of a do-it-yourself economic nexus to be looking back to that. But the important thing is that to realize is that of all of the 50 states and of the 45 states that do collect sales tax, potentially they have different criteria for what that economic nexus is, and this gives you an idea of how to track that for yourself, so that you're not surprised by a tax notice from a state that you didn't even know that you were in, because they don't look kindly on that.
And I'll just point out right there where it says, where do you need to pay sales taxes? See the learn more. That's where you want to click, and it will show you all 50 states, and it will give you the details and allow you to learn more for the 50 states. And then we had a question about professional sales for services, not products. Does it say you have to pay sales tax on this? And no, it doesn't tell you about that. And that is very important, that that's something you do need to find out, because some states require that, some states don't. Some states require, if you bundle, like let's say you create a package and it's $1,000 a month to do the bookkeeping, and it covers your bill subscription and your QBO subscription. So for $1,000 a month, we do your bookkeeping and these subscriptions. If you bundle those app subscriptions with your services, it may make your services taxable in certain states. So in some states, you have to invoice those two things separately, your services on one invoice and your app subscriptions on another invoice. So you need to know those things, and that's where Avalara or others can help you with those kind of things, because it is important that you know that, and that does vary by state. That is above my pay grade and my knowledge level. So,
Right. Yeah, you definitely don't want to
that.
get into that if you're not into that.
Definitely.
That way.
And then managing fixed assets just came out as well. It is in QBO Advanced subscriptions only. QBO Advanced subscriptions only. It's not in Plus or Essentials or anything like that. You can go in and set up new assets, their cost, the salvage value, put in a depreciation schedule. It's only calculating book depreciation. It is not calculating tax. So you can choose straight line, double declining balance, or 150% declining balance. So you can't choose any tax depreciation, just straight line, double declining, or 150%. It will only make the depreciation entries for the future. So if you're trying to put existing assets in there, it's not going to do historical depreciation for you. You would have to make journal entries to make sure that you've got that in there. It's also not recording the purchase or a disposal of an asset. You would need to do that yourself. All you're doing is putting in there these assets so that it can calculate the depreciation schedule and record future depreciation journal entries for you. So it will record that moving forward, not retroactively. But it looks like this is a V1. It looks like it may in the future, have more capabilities of doing some things and stuff like that. But it is a good first start. You can enter the assets one at a time, or you can go in and bulk set them up. It's got a spreadsheet like feature where you can actually customize the columns, and then you can copy and paste to set up multiple assets at one time. And Dan's got the little link there for a little video where you can go watch, and it gives you a little demo of that. So you can go in and see that there.
Yeah, so download the slides. I don't think we'll have time to do the video today, but it's there in the slides. We'll put it on the QB Power Hour website. So you'll be able to access and review that at a later time if you want. I also wanted to point out that we did a session with Ash. He created a net tracker tool. So for all those but questions that Michelle just kind of pointed out, of like all of these other things, scenarios that you wanted to take care of, and this may or may not address as of today. He created a net tracker tool for fixed assets, as well as revenue recognition, prepaid expenses, and those types of things, which kind of covers all of those things that we end up having to do as accounting and bookkeeping professionals. Feel free to watch that webinar series or watch that webinar about that, and if that makes sense to maybe try that, give that a try, as opposed to this new feature, because this only works for QBO Advanced. What about the Plus subscriptions that we have that you might want to do that to as well? Yep. No, don't go. All right. So while we figure out some questions to answer in the last couple of minutes, I just want to launch our one and only poll question. Did you learn something new? Because Michelle and I love to try to make this educational and make sure that people are aware, and we want you to continue the discussion on the Facebook groups as they are. I did notice a few Intuit folks joining us here, so they are listening.
And
Right?
Janice had a question. She's been disallowed from managing her clients' bank feeds in QB Desktop as an external accountant user. She has to go in as admin to do it. Any insight as to that change on version 21 and 22?
I'm not 100% sure on why you can't do that. I know that only one person can do that. And usually there's like a message that says, hey, only one person can access the bank feeds, and would you like to do that? And it's a yes or no question. But I've never seen it where it's been disallowed as an account user and having to go in as an admin to do that. That is a good That is a great question, and we should try to follow up for that.
Okay.
Any other
Yeah,
questions that you saw there?
And that was a big one that I didn't know. Yeah, so I'm not sure on that.
All right. Well, did look like a lot of people learned something, which is good. When we close out of the webinar, there will be a survey, so we appreciate any feedback there, because we do read that. And then hopefully you can join us next time on the Power Hour, where we'll be talking about the cannabis industry and niche nuances. So should be a good time.
Are we going to do some research on that, Dan?
I don't know. We'll see.
We may have to.
All right. Well, appreciate you joining us, Michelle. It's always great to see you, and hopefully we see you